The wind cut through the Alaskan wilderness like a frozen blade, whipping around the isolated research station where Jay Park worked. Snow danced outside the windows, creating intricate patterns against the dark glass. The station stood alone, a small beacon of human presence in the vast, white landscape. Jay wasn't expecting company. His research on climate patterns kept him isolated, with only occasional supply drops and rare communication with his team. The station was his entire world, a compact living space filled with scientific equipment, computer monitors, and the essential supplies needed to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. When the first knock came, he thought it was his imagination. The wind often played tricks, creating sounds that seemed like human intervention. But the second knock was deliberate, a sharp rap against the metal door that couldn't be mistaken for anything else. Cautiously, Jay approached the door. His hand hovered near a small security device, a habit formed from years of working in remote locations. He checked the external camera, expecting perhaps a lost traveler or a maintenance worker. Instead, what he saw made him pause. A woman stood outside. But she wasn't like any woman he had ever seen before. Her skin had a slight bluish-silver sheen that caught the moonlight. Her clothing was unlike anything in current human fashion, a form-fitting suit that seemed to shimmer and change color slightly as she moved. Her eyes were large, with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the camera lens. Jay hesitated. Every scientific instinct in his body screamed that something was extraordinary about this moment. This was not a normal encounter. This was something beyond his training, beyond his understanding. The woman raised her hand. A gesture that was both a plea and a warning. When Jay opened the door, the cold rushed in with her. She stood slightly shorter than him, her body showing signs of recent injury, a tear in her strange suit, a hint of something dark and liquid that might be blood, but not quite the red he was familiar with. "Help me," she said. Her voice was clear, perfect English with no hint of an accent. But there was something else, a slight resonance that suggested the words were being translated in real time. Jay's mind raced. Protocol suggested many things: call base, document the encounter, maintain distance. But something in her eyes stopped him. Fear. Genuine, raw fear that transcended any species or communication barrier. She stumbled forward, and he instinctively reached out to catch her. The moment his hands touched her, he felt it, a slight electric charge, a temperature difference that didn't match human biology. "They are coming," she whispered, her eyes darting behind her into the snow-covered darkness. Jay looked out. The wilderness remained white and silent. But something felt different. The air seemed to hold a tension, like a stretched wire about to snap. He knew, in that moment, that his life was about to change completely. This was not a normal night. This was not a normal encounter. This was the beginning of something much larger than his small research station, much bigger than his understanding of the world. The woman collapsed slightly in his arms, her breath creating small, almost luminescent clouds in the freezing air. Her injuries were serious, but she was conscious. Her hand gripped his arm with surprising strength. "Protect the information," she murmured, her eyes locked onto his. And then, outside in the distance, something moved in the snow. Something that wasn't natural. Something that suggested the night was about to get very complicated. Jay Park, a scientist who had spent years studying the quiet patterns of our planet, realized he was now part of a story much larger than climate research. A story that would challenge everything he knew about humanity, about survival, and about the universe itself. The night was just beginning. Jay carefully moved the injured woman to his medical station, a small area designed for basic first aid and emergency treatments. Her breathing was steady but unusual, with a rhythm that didn't match human respiratory patterns. He examined her injuries, strange wounds that seemed to shimmer and heal at an accelerated rate. She opened her eyes, catching him mid-examination. "I am Yuna," she said simply. Her voice carried a weight of exhaustion and something else, determination. Jay prepared a medical scanner, but Yuna raised her hand. "Your technology will not understand me," she explained. Her fingers touched a small device on her wrist, and a holographic display flickered to life between them. Images began to dance: star systems, massive spacecraft, scenes of destruction that looked both alien and terrifyingly familiar. Yuna's story began to unfold. She was a scout from a civilization far beyond human understanding, fleeing from a collective known simply as the invasion. Your planet, she said carefully, is not just a random stop. It is a strategic point in a war you cannot yet comprehend. The hologram showed massive ships consuming entire planetary systems. Civilizations reduced to cosmic dust. But amid the destruction, human technology appeared small, almost insignificant, yet somehow resilient. Jay listened. His scientific mind fought between skepticism and an overwhelming sense of curiosity. Every image challenged everything he knew about the universe. Yuna explained that her people had been watching Earth for generations. Humans were an anomaly, a species too unpredictable, too adaptable to be easily categorized. Where other civilizations had fallen, humans continued to survive. The collective believes in perfect order, she said. Efficiency through complete control. But humans. You are chaos. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Her wounds continued to heal. Jay watched in fascination as complex biological processes worked faster than any medical technology he had ever seen. Each cell seemed to communicate, to reorganize, to rebuild. Outside, the Alaskan wilderness remained quiet. But something had changed. The air felt different, charged with a potential that went beyond normal understanding. Yuna pulled up more images. Star maps. Technology designs. Invasion routes. She was sharing critical intelligence, hoping that Jay, and through him, humanity, could understand the magnitude of the threat. They are coming, she repeated her earlier warning. And they will not stop until everything is controlled. Jay realized this was more than a scientific discovery. This was a moment that could define humanity's future. A first contact that wasn't about peaceful communication, but about survival. His research station, once a quiet place of climate studies, was now the potential starting point of humanity's greatest challenge. A small room in the middle of nowhere could become the first line of defense against a cosmic threat. Yuna's eyes locked with his. No words were needed. They both understood the gravity of the moment. The night continued. Outside, snow fell. Inside, two beings from different worlds prepared for a confrontation that would change everything. Jay knew one thing with absolute certainty: nothing would ever be the same again. The first contact had begun, the research station transformed. What was once a quiet scientific outpost became an unlikely war room. Jay worked with intense focus, using every piece of equipment available to understand Yuna's technology. Yuna explained that the collective was not just an invasion force. They were a civilization built on perfect control, eliminating any form of biological diversity or individual thought. Her people had been fighting them for generations, losing ground with each passing year. Jay's scientific equipment became something entirely different. Weather monitoring devices were repurposed into scanning systems. Communication arrays were modified to detect unusual energy signatures. His computer systems, once used for tracking climate patterns, now processed alien technological data. They will track my signal, Yuna warned. Her fingers moved quickly over a small device, creating complex encryption patterns that made Jay's most advanced coding look like child's play. Outside, the Alaskan wilderness remained calm. Snow continued to fall, covering their location in a natural camouflage. But both knew it was temporary. The collective would find them soon. Jay contacted his research team, but carefully. Short, encrypted messages that revealed nothing specific. Just enough to ensure someone would know something was happening if they disappeared. Yuna shared knowledge about the collective's tracking systems. They used advanced quantum entanglement technology that could detect specific biological signatures across light years. Her own technology was a constant game of hide and escape. Humans are different, she explained. Your technology is primitive, but your adaptability is your greatest weapon. They worked together, combining her advanced knowledge with his practical scientific understanding. Improvised defense systems emerged. Simple radio equipment was transformed into potential communication jammers. Weather monitoring satellites were redirected to scan for unusual energy signatures. The research station's generator was modified. Una showed Jay how to create electromagnetic pulse systems using basic components. What would have taken her civilization months to develop, they created in hours. Speed is your advantage, Una said. The collective expects methodical planning. You think differently. Jay realized they were doing more than preparing for a potential invasion. They were creating a blueprint for resistance. Every modification was a lesson in survival, in thinking beyond established technological boundaries. His training as a climate researcher became unexpectedly useful. Understanding complex systems, tracking subtle changes, anticipating potential outcomes, these skills translated perfectly to their current situation. Una's injuries continued to heal. Her body seemed to be a living, adaptive system. Cells reconstructing, energy redirecting, a biological technology far beyond human understanding. As hours passed, their preparation took shape. The research station was no longer just a building. It was a potential fortress. A starting point of resistance. They will not expect this, Una said, looking at their improvised defense systems. Her smile was something between hope and a strategic calculation. Jay felt something he had not expected: excitement. This was beyond any scientific discovery he could have imagined. This was humanity's first real step into a larger, more complex universe. The collective was coming. But they would find something they did not expect. Not a simple target. But a species ready to fight, to adapt, to survive. Night continued to fall outside. Inside the research station, two beings from different worlds prepared for a confrontation that would change everything. Preparation was almost complete. The first sign of invasion came silently. A subtle change in electromagnetic signals, a slight distortion in the atmospheric pressure. Una's hand moved to a small device on her wrist, her eyes narrowing. "They're here," she whispered. Outside, the Alaskan snow began to shift. Not from wind, but from something massive moving beneath its surface. Jay's modified tracking systems lit up with impossible readings, energy signatures that defied known physics. 3 massive ships emerged from the snow. They weren't metal, weren't solid, they were something in between. Organic technology that shifted and changed, adapting to the environment like living organisms. Each ship was larger than a city block, completely silent despite its impossible size. Jay's improvised defense systems activated. Electromagnetic pulse generators he and Una had created from research station equipment began to pulse. Simple tools transformed into weapons of unexpected complexity. They expect technological superiority, Una said. But they don't understand human unpredictability. The collective's ships began to scan. Precise, methodical energy beams that would typically disable any resistance. But Jay had prepared differently. His climate research equipment created interference patterns, breaking their scanning capabilities. Una moved with incredible speed. Her body seemed to shift, becoming part weapon, part communication device. She interfaced with their systems, creating digital disruptions that confused the invasion force. Jay realized their strength wasn't in advanced technology. It was in their ability to think differently. Where the collective saw perfect order, humans saw opportunity for chaos. The first wave of invasion units dropped. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were living algorithms, biological computing units designed to eliminate resistance. Each movement calculated, each action precise. But Jay had prepared. Simple radio frequencies were modified to create destructive interference. Weather monitoring satellites were redirected to create localized electromagnetic disruptions. Everything became a potential weapon. Una's technology merged with Jay's human ingenuity. She created quantum encryption patterns that the invasion force couldn't predict. He used environmental understanding to create unexpected resistance points. The research station transformed. No longer a quiet scientific outpost, it became a fortress of human creativity. Every piece of equipment became a potential defense mechanism. The collective's units began to falter. Their perfect calculations couldn't account for the randomness of human strategy. Where they expected straight lines, they found complex networks of resistance. Humans are a virus to perfect systems, Una said, her voice a mix of warning and admiration. You don't follow rules. You create them. Explosions erupted, but not from traditional weapons. Electromagnetic pulses created by modified research equipment disabled the invasion ships. Weather monitoring satellites became unexpected weapons of disruption. Jay realized they were doing more than fighting. They were sending a message. Humanity was not a simple target. Humanity was a force of unexpected complexity. Hours passed. The confrontation continued. The Alaskan wilderness became a battlefield of technologies beyond normal understanding. Snow mixed with strange energy signatures. The research station stood as a beacon of unexpected resistance. Una looked at Jay. No words were needed. They had done something impossible. They had shown that technological perfection meant nothing against human creativity. The invasion force began to retreat. Not defeated, but confused. Humanity had shown something they had never encountered before, an ability to fight beyond expected parameters. As the ships disappeared, leaving only disturbed snow and strange energy signatures, Jay and Una knew one thing. This was just the beginning. The confrontation had changed everything. The aftermath of the confrontation was unlike anything anyone could have predicted. The Alaskan research station stood intact, surrounded by strange metallic fragments and disrupted snow patterns that told a story of an impossible battle. Una's communication device began receiving signals from her home civilization. The data they transmitted was unexpected and complex. The confrontation at the research station wasn't just a local skirmish, it was a turning point in a galactic conflict that had been raging for centuries. Jay discovered that the improvised defense systems they had created were more than just temporary solutions. The technology they had developed through pure human creativity was revolutionary. Each modified device represented a new approach to technological resistance that the collective had never encountered. Your species does something unique, Una explained, her fingers tracing holographic maps of star systems. You solve problems by breaking rules, not following them. The collective's retreat was more significant than a simple military withdrawal. Their quantum communication networks had been fundamentally disrupted. The information from this single encounter would force them to recalculate entire invasion strategies. Satellite communications began picking up strange signals. Other research stations, military bases, and scientific teams were reporting unusual electromagnetic activities. What had happened in the Alaskan wilderness was spreading a ripple of resistance that no one could have predicted. Jay's research equipment continued to process the massive amount of data they had collected. Each analysis revealed something more incredible. Humanity's potential was far beyond what any galactic civilization had understood. Una shared more details about the collective. They were a civilization that believed in perfect control, eliminating any form of biological diversity or individual thought. But this encounter had shown them something terrifying, a species that thrived on unpredictability. They will study this moment, she said. This small research station in the middle of nowhere just changed everything. The victory wasn't about destroying the invasion force. It was about demonstrating humanity's potential. Where other civilizations would have been eliminated, humans had found a way to resist, to adapt, to survive. Communication started coming from different parts of the world. Scientific teams, military researchers, government agencies all began to piece together what had happened. The story of the Alaskan research station was becoming something more than a local incident. Jay realized they had done more than defend against an invasion. They had sent a message to the entire universe. Humanity was not a simple target. Humanity was a force of unexpected complexity. Una's people began sending more information. Star maps, technology designs, invasion routes, all of which now included a new variable.
Humanity.
A species that could not be categorized, could not be controlled. The research station, once a quiet place of climate studies, had become the birthplace of a new understanding.
Humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were a potential game-changer in galactic dynamics. As days passed, the implications became clearer. The collective would return.
But they would return changed. They would return with the understanding that humanity was something entirely unexpected.
Jay looked at Yuna.
She looked back, a slight smile indicating something between respect and strategic calculation.
What happens now? Jay asked. Yuna's response was simple and profound.
Now, we prepare for the next encounter. The Alaskan wilderness remained quiet. Snow continued to fall. But everything had changed. A small research station had become the point where humanity's potential was first truly recognized.
The unexpected victory was complete.
But this was just the beginning.